Hi, everybody, and welcome to Life Force One. Good to see you again. Hope you're all well. Had a good week. Hope you're looking after yourselves, taking some time out. I wanted to share with you today, on today's video, a concept which many of us actually come across, perhaps even every day, hopefully not for all of you. But it's the notion of brain fog. We call brain fog, which is very funny as a term, but it's not funny if it actually happens to you. What happens is that sometimes when we get a little bit anxious, our brain almost seems to freeze. It's like suddenly you can't think of anything else. You can't think of the next thing you were going to say. If you're feeling nervous about talking to somebody, or suddenly no noise comes out. You can't find the perfect word. Or what happens is perhaps just before an exam, you can't remember what you revised. It's like there's a blank there. Well, that blank is what we call brain fog. It's like no matter how hard you try, and if you try even harder, it's even more difficult to try and remember what it was that you wanted to say, or those things that you'd revised so well beforehand. So why does that happen? Bit of a strange phenomenon that we don't understand unless we go back to what used to happen in the days of cavemen, because our brains are still wired as if we're cavemen, even if we're not today. And it was really to protect us from any danger. There are three responses if we're faced with danger, and one of them is fight, flight, and then to freeze on the spot. Now, when we freeze on the spot, sometimes we could actually physically freeze, like as we're sitting still, just suddenly like crisp up. You can feel your body crisping. And if you imagine an insect, when there's a predator going past, what it does is it stays very, very still, and it waits until the predator's gone, and it almost disguises itself. A lot of them have the capacity to be able to take the same color or the same form as the leaves that they're on, or some deer in the wild can hide themselves very, very well in the environment. And because they can't actually fight predators like lions or etc., what they do is they fold into the environment. And this is really what you're doing when you get brain fog. When you get that blank, it's like you're hoping, part of you is hoping that the teacher's going to ask somebody else, or that this moment is just going to go past and you're going to survive it, and then you'll be able to get on with things again. And what it's causing inside our brain is that the limbic part of our brain is taking over, and it does that to protect us. The survival part of our brain, it's the oldest part of our brain. And what it does is it overrides what we call the prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex, is what we're actually using to think. It consults different parts of our brain for information, and then sort of takes the best decision it can. It's kind of like the boss. And when it's overridden, when we think we're in danger, it's overridden by other parts, by the limbic part of our brain, so that we can take a decision very, very quickly. Because if we're in survival mode, we need to decide now. So it literally shuts down your thinking process now, so that you can survive, because it thinks it's the best. The brain thinks this is the best reaction that it should take given the current circumstances. Only we're not actually functioning in cavemen days anymore, so we don't really need it to work like that. So all that's happening is a normal reaction. This happens to lots and lots of people because we'll choose by default one of those three ways of reacting to a stressful environment or to a danger: fight, flight, or freeze. And if it's freeze, that's going to happen to you perhaps quite often, and it's perfectly normal thing to happen as a reaction. It's just not very helpful if it's just before an exam, for example. So all we need to do is convince our brains that we're not actually in that much danger. And we do this by calming down. If we take a moment just to breathe in deeply and breathe out. You can breathe all the way out. Turn to the lungs. Almost like you're breathing through a straw as well. That can help. Do that for a little bit. Maybe close your eyes if it helps. Keep breathing. And we realize that in the present moment, the danger that we'd imagined isn't actually there. We keep telling ourselves, it's okay. It's okay. You'll just do the best that you can in the moment. That's all you can do now. Can't keep revising. Can't leave the room. We can't do anything else. We just kind of sit. Take a second. And as we breathe deeply, it forces our body to think we're calm because we breathe in a very, very shallow way when we're not calm. And when we are calm, we breathe more deeply. So by sort of forcing ourselves to breathe more deeply, we're sort of tricking our brains into thinking everything is fine. And as it does that, the limbic's going to give up the control back to the prefrontal cortex. And you're going to be able to think again. Okay, so even if you think you don't have much time because in that instant you need to be able to act, you need to be able to write the exam, you need to be able to say that, actually the best response is just to take a second and calm for a moment. So even if you lose 30 seconds doing that, that's actually what's going to help you in future to move forward. Or as a choice rather than an automatic response. Okay, so that's the subject for today, brain fog. And just bear in mind, it's a normal response. So if you get it, it's okay. You now know what it is, and you now know what to do with that. So I hope that helps. And I'll see you next time. Have a good week.